I grew up in a Christian household for my whole childhood and accepted Christ into my life as a young kid. But when we moved to Tennessee, something kind of hit the fan in my family, so to speak. At that time, my parents' marriage started kind of falling apart, and it had already started happening. I just didn't really, I guess, realize it as a child, that things perhaps weren't going very well. So when I was 13, they announced to us that they were going to be getting a divorce. And that was really kind of the marker that I kind of used as the beginning of kind of my somewhat of a downward spiral in my life. And I kind of fell into some bad influences in my life. One of the big bad influences that I began to surround myself with was actually in the form of music. I would fall asleep every night just listening to music with hate-filled lyrics, and that was just full of anger and hatred and just all kinds of things. And I would fill myself with that. I really inundated myself with that kind of music and that kind of thinking and that kind of lifestyle. And I surrounded myself with people who thought and felt that way, and it started to then, I reflected that, therefore, in my own life and my own thinking and the way that I went about walking throughout my life. And, as a result of that, I became angry because of my circumstances, because of my family, because of, for whatever reason. But I was angry, and I became depressed and isolated and alone. One of the songs that I used to fall asleep to every night would get to this chorus, and the lead singer would just scream, just this anguishing kind of scream, nobody loves me, nobody cares. And I believed that for myself. So this circle of friends that I was spending my time with, they were involved in some things, and found myself doing drugs on a regular basis, and just pushing me further into depression and anger and hatred. Found myself even thinking suicidal thoughts, not really seeing a reason to live, to continue on. I was living with my mom at the time, and she really didn't give me a choice about going to church. I still had to go to church with her, but but despite that, there were still some real key people that saw what I was struggling with and going through, and they chose to love me anyway. One of those persons actually gave me a CD of some Christian music, and at the time it was pretty laughable. I didn't have any desire to listen to it, but just one of those nights where I was just alone in my room, just filled with just hopelessness and just anger about everything, and not understanding, what was going on in my life or what I was doing. I put that CD in, I'm not really sure why, but I got, I was just kind of clicking through the songs. I got to the song, and for whatever reason, I kept listening to it. It was talking about Jesus, and he was on the cross, and it was sung from the point of view of one of the thieves next to him. I think at one point of the song, the thief looked over at Jesus and basically confessed to him, and Jesus looked back and he said, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise." And just that picture of grace, that mercy, in that moment I was just flooded with God's grace, and that mercy met me in that room, in that place, and I just broke down and started weeping, and I accepted Jesus into my life. I accepted that grace and that mercy for myself, and I started to live for him in that moment. And since that point, God's really just done an incredible work in my life. I mean, he started to just one by one remove those negative influences that I had surrounded myself with. The drugs were out of my life. I began to make better decisions, and I dedicated myself to God and said, I'm done living for myself. I'm done doing life my way. I want to live for you. And so I found that the deeper I went into my relationship with God, the greater this sense of burden I had for others. God called me into ministry, and I knew that's the direction that I was headed in my life, and I started doing everything and anything I could in the church and with other people, with young people, and even in music. God redeemed something that had been used for such evil in my life, music, and he turned it around to be such an instrument for hope and something that I could then use to bless other people and to offer the hope that Jesus had given me. It's cool to look back and see how just normal, everyday people were God's love extended to me. People in a youth group, in a student ministry, they offered me hope, they offered me love that I wasn't getting anywhere else, that I didn't see anywhere else in this world. And Today I get to be that hope extended, that love extended to people maybe in the same situation that I was. And to see it transform lives, to see God transform lives in the same way that He did mine. My name is Jonathan, and I'm a story of extreme hope.